Okay, it says we're live. So somebody in the chat say something. Troll, I see you there. As you can tell, I'm back at Papa Carey's right now. Um, he fell and broke his hip 2 weeks ago this Sunday. When I first got that call, I got very upset because I remember a time when that was basically a death sentence. Even now, if it hadn't have been for some really oddly bad luck that worked out in his favor, could have gone there. So, and I'm starting to touch on the late side today, although it's still technically early, because I was running around this morning taking care of some stuff for him. And I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Okay, populate chat. Okay, so I am transmitting. That's the important part. Okay, so I'm going to hold off on restoring the militia system until later because hopefully somebody's going to show up today. See, the other subjects were everyday carry and my allies rant. All right, I'm going to start with bad news first. The allies rant. Some people in the 2A community, um, they're not really great on helping each other out. And if you recognize yourself in that statement, you might want to think about it. I'm going to throw a counter example, sort of under the bus. Ghost Hack, great guy, has actually been helpful. As a matter of fact, when I specifically asked for help, he stepped up and gave me the information I needed to try to follow up. Um, I have this, I have a piece of paper with writing on it. It's not actually an amicus brief. It's just the first draft for one, but I need an attorney to file it. I asked around for almost a year, actually. I reached out to, well, three of the three-letter names that people will think of. I even went down to the one's office, and they don't have a sign or anything, so I couldn't actually find their office to try to get somebody to help me out with this. And all I wanted was for them to say, oh, sure, this, you should go talk to Eric or this other guy or somebody else, and they can help you out. We'll call them up and tell them you're coming. That's all I wanted out of them. Never even got a response back. Um, just completely on a lark one day when Ghost was live streaming, I actually asked, who would you go to for legal aid or help or whatever it was I said, and Ghost had an answer that fast. So him, I would recommend. Some of y'all, I've asked for, even just basic questions. I don't get answers. And don't tell me you don't know about it. Facebook will tell me if somebody's read a message or not. That was actually for one particular individual. There's a few others that, I've emailed you and I still haven't gotten an answer 2 years later, 6 months later. You see yourself in this rant, start working on that. All right. The next subject, the second subject was everyday carry. I see people talking about their everyday carry and they're loading themselves up so heavy. It's like one step short of actually planning on going to war. I'm waiting for them to talk about what type of helmet they prefer. Your everyday carry should be the lightest thing possible. And it should be just enough that if you find yourself in a bad situation, you can get out of it. Or wor- worst case scenario, you get home. Right. Um, do you need a full-on IFAC for an everyday carry? Yeah, if it's your holster as well, but otherwise, no. A, even a couple bandages, more than you should need. Um, Gonna go back to Ghost for a second. He mentioned carrying a tourniquet around. Well, yeah, if you can do it with and keep it out of the way at the same time. Otherwise, do the best you can with ripped up clothing. There's a case out in New York. A dance club patio collapsed. There's something like 50 people hurt. The on-scene commander, who happened to be a coastie, so that's how I know about this story, was actually using parts of broken doors as stretchers long enough to load people up so that they could go get help. The fire department showed up and they wanted to take over command. And well, no, I'm sort of already here and I know what's going on. I'm still in command. Once we're ready to go, then you can take over. So it was an admonishment, I think, to coasties to think about where you are and who's really in charge here. But she was right. And she's using doors to carry people to safety. Shoestring and a stick. I caught that. I'll get to it in a second. Um, as little as possible, enough to get home. Because of where I work, we got like five first aid, those big, like $500, $800, $1,000 battle aid stations hanging up. Well, three of them where I can see them from my spot. Two more I know right behind the bulkhead behind me. And I think there's like three more on the other side of that compartment. Plus, there's two other compartments I've never even been into before. And I think there's more back there. If you're someplace where you don't have some sort of first aid, do what you can where you are. Cut their clothes up if you have to. People get their morning DM. Uh, Rib cages are cracked a lot from CPR. There have been cases of CPR where people's ribs have been broken. That's unfortunate, and that's a sign you're probably doing it wrong. But it's better than them dying right then and there. Um. Okay. So yeah, if you know you're going to be someplace where there's no first aid kit, okay, great. How many times are you going to find yourself somewhere where that doesn't exist? Not as often as you think. All right. Troll had said earlier, shoestring and a stick, and then not my shoestring, not my stick. I think that's a variation of not my monkeys, not my circus. But anyway, shoestrings are a little on the thin side. If it's that or nothing, shoestring on a stick or a gun barrel. I've seen that happen before. I've seen the photograph of that happening before, rather. Um, Belt is a better option. I'm just saying. Um, Bandages. This is just one big bandage. And if I'm the one who got hurt, probably covered in my blood anyway. What difference does it make? The thing you need to worry about the most is gloves. If the first aid kit has gloves, you're in great shape. If it doesn't, there's pouches. Oh, and Quartermaster, I think it was, used to sell them. Probably don't anymore. They were designed just for rubber gloves. Something to consider there. Um, okay, that's it for the coffee for now. My EDC is my gun, one spare clip, a multi-tool, and sometimes my folding trench knife. All right. I've been getting kind of lazy about carrying the knife because there's a knife on the multi-tool. It's still something I could carry. A couple days ago, last week, when I was at work, I had to open a box. I had to open it now. I didn't have the presence of mind to get my multi-tool out. First thing I reached for was my keys. Got the box open anyway. Uh, pare it down as far as you can because remember, you've got to move with this stuff. And you're probably moving to from someplace that's bad to someplace where you know you can get help. I'm just saying. I meant to bring it out with me, but with the running around I had to do today, I left it inside. So, sorry, guys. Um, not going to get too far into the question of what kind of gun should you carry. Excuse me. Actually, I'm going to get into it a little bit. You should carry the 40 caliber version of whatever your local police department carries if there's a conversion kit to make it 9. If your local police department carries 9s that can't be converted, and I know there's a few, I want to say Shield is one of them, carry Shield. Try and carry the same thing they do, because if you find yourself in a bad spot, you can re yeah, you can get ammo from the cops and go back in. Although if you're staying that long after the cops are already involved, you might want to think about where you are and why are you staying. Okay. Troll says I keep a fairly big first aid kit in my truck and toolbox, 9mm on my person, and a pocket knife. Now that's a little bit different. You can have a full-fledged ambulance worth of gear in your car. That's awesome. That's great. It's a little on the heavy and an expensive side, but great, good for you. But carrying it on you, eh, you're slowing yourself down. You're going to get yourself caught up. Believe it or not, one of the exceptions to mandatory carry under conditional exemptions is nature of work. You can choose to not carry at work if you have a situation where it's not safe to. I always think of utility line workers first, but one of the ones I thought of was sewage workers and other confined space workers because you might get caught on your own gun. That's not good, right? And if it's not safe to carry a gun down there, is a first aid kit going to be that much better for you? Something to consider. Oh, I always forget to say this. Comms. Cell phone. This thing goes off, by the way. It's end of stream right then and there. So yeah, I mean, as much gear as you want to carry in your car, that's great. When I was homeless, I carried five, I think it was 5 gallons of water in old uh, Gatorade, 1 gallon Gatorade bottles. Um, And I kept that with me, and I kept that conscientiously filled because I had one night where there was no water for 10 miles in any direction that I could drink. It was, well, I was working at a slaughterhouse and I was homeless, so that's an interesting thing to say. And the only water there was inside the animal pens. That was the last time that happened to me. Okay, Troll, I see you gotta go, but I'm gonna go back over your chat anyway. Troll says, I picked up from a SAR guy that he got an upgrade and this fit in my truck bed. Well, yeah, there's not a whole lot that will not fit in a truck bed. Um, you could tow an 18-wheeler trailer off of a pickup truck if it's empty. If it's loaded, depends on what it's loaded with, I guess. Um, wouldn't recommend it terribly much. Uh, but yeah, keep that. Keep the car carry as heavy as you want. But on you, pare it down to just what you absolutely know you would need, like the folding trench knife. I know I don't actually absolutely need under all circumstances. The only thing on there that I would need under all circumstances is the knife that's already on the multi-tool. Also, I'm not allowed to carry the knife at work. They consider it a weapon, and for a reason. I will also say that my gun is very much concealed carry. I've been looked at by cops who couldn't identify my holster for what it was. Knowing cops a little bit like I do, I know they assumed I had one. They didn't recognize it for what it was. Just saying. All right. Troll says he's out of here. And StreamYard's just telling me there's two people watching. So I have a second person in here. Please say hi. Um, anybody in the comments, if you want to mention what your unique carry items are. I heard rubber bands once. How do you carry rubber bands on a consistent basis? Um, Rubber gloves, it's a little harder to make sure you've always got those. But depending on, especially on how you carry your gun, you might pull it off. um, ow. Uh, Now would also be a good time to mention I have a scheduling conflict next week, so I will not be able to stream. It is what it is. Right. Not every situation, of course, is the same. Um, if you're a logger, your everyday carry has obviously got to be a lot heavier because you're a long way from help. If it's ever coming, you're still a long way from help. Um, when I was a security guard, I was out all night, every night by myself. The nearest help was 45-ish minutes away. Well, no, that's not true. The one time I actually did need help, they were 5 minutes away because they were already next door, which was a related property, on that call. And that call spilled over onto mine. The info says I keep very minimal on body EDC stuff. Yeah, that's what I've been harping on. Um, but usually they'd be 45 minutes away. That's an awful long time, especially in a bad cell zone, which is where I was, with no radio supplied. That would always really, really suck. Guys, I have got to stop the cam for a second because I have to do something that people really hate. Oh, okay. Big news flash. I have a bad neck, and there's only one way to make it feel better. All right, some other news. I'm trying to back away from the election related stuff for a little while because I know it's a big shit fest. I will say this much. At this point, it doesn't matter what happens next. If you live in a big city, yeah, be ready. You might recognize your hometown out of a film from World War II of Dresden here in about 6 months. Be ready to leave with about 20 minutes notice. Oh, might sound strange to say this. I do not carry body armor all day, every day. When I was working security, I only wore body armor when I was working days or public places. Uh, like when I was working the movie theater back in the 90s. How much how much use do I have for it at a construction or a factory and office building, the middle of the night, in the middle of winter? None. It just wasn't there. That was last year, by the way. Actually, part of it was still considered a construction site, but I stayed out of there because they didn't need us down there. When I was working the movie theater, and bear in mind that this is still pre Columbine, I did understand that things can happen here that people don't want to have happen, which means people are doing things that they want me out of the way for. Well, I can't do anything to stop them if I'm dead. Back then, class one was still considered adequate, by the way. Just saying. So, no, I don't wear body armor basically at all anymore. If you get it, try to get something you can wear underneath your clothes. Um, as you can see, nothing here, right? There is armor out there that actually looks like clothes. There's at least one brand that technically is clothing. Um, it's sweatshirts, I think, but it gets really hot really fast. And if you're at work and you're not expecting a problem, it may not be worth it. Um, well, this is a shit show because I don't know what else to talk about until my guest arrives, and that's still at least 30 minutes away. So, oop, yeah, I'm going to talk about bugging out. Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about bunkering down, and then I'll talk about bugging out. Bunkering down. All right. So you were at work when you get a call of, or you get told by your supervisor, everybody go home now, stay there. And then on the way home, you hear on the radio, police are saying lock your doors and stay in your homes. Okay, the zombies are here. One way or the other, the zombies are here for you. Bunkering in is literally going in your house, locking your front door, and making a decision. You're not going to unlock that door for the next few days, right? Couple things that will help you in this regard. Big bookshelves. They can be the cheap IKEA bookshelves. All they have to do is cover your window or the majority of your window and then put stuff in front of it that's too heavy to easily move. Barricade your door. Um, if you have a sliding glass door, like oh, my ex-wife does, might want two shelves, but really block the hell out of it. And it's not actually to keep people out because if there's enough of them, they will get through eventually. It's to make an obstruction that makes it harder for them to get in, which buys you time to react. Um, then is the bug out, the start of your bug out. Have a car, have it as full of gas as you can get, and basically have one big box you can throw in the back, drive off into the sunset for a couple of days. There is somebody I would love to talk to about this subject. His bug out plan is to move, I think it's 3 days worth of time, basically from one end of the country to the other. Um, I would really love to talk to him about helping to facilitate that plan. Unfortunately, he won't respond to my emails. It is what it is. Um, that's when you really need to have a place to come to. Now, for those of you that have been following the channel, you notice I talk about the lake house. Yeah, that's Papa Carey's bug out plan. And he actually was talking about having fuel on hand to be able to make that 2 day trip. Well, he can make it in one day, but he doesn't want to. Um, your bug out plan has to be you know where you're actually going, where you know who's at the other end. My bug out plan is actually to head up to Papa Carey's. If my town gets to that point, my little tiny bit of hell I don't see getting there. Not far from me is a lot of people that would be trying to get the hell out of Dodge. Okay. So yeah, have a plan of where, not just how you're going to get there, where you're going to go. All right, you can't fuel up your car as you leave from a bug out. It's kind of too late. Everybody's trying to fuel up now. So keep at least enough fuel in your vehicle to make it 100 miles ish. um, and if you can, have a plan to refuel along the way. On that note, you might notice that this doesn't look like a terribly great setup. This is actually Papa Carey's uh, trailer, which is doubles as his guest house at least when I'm here. Um, this is part of his bug out plan. Hook up and run. Because he still lives on a farm, what's legally considered a farm, he can have untaxed fuel on hand. He's actually getting that equipment supposedly eventually. I have some questions about that. But there's more than enough room in this barn to. This is actually inside of a barn to make that happen. So we'll see what he does. This could actually be a bug out plan in and of itself. He's just choosing not to because it's still in California. I make the trip up to the lake house for that reason. All right. This is only like 2 hour drive from San Francisco and Sacramento. People will come here eventually anyway on their way to their nirvana. So his lake house is like 100 miles off of I-5. All right. Not ignoring y'all. Just checking everything. Uh, okay. Sorry, guys. One of these days, I'm going to stop boomering my way through this and understand how to do it all myself. There we go. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, have a plan of where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. I know Papa Carey, his plan was based on how far he could get on a single tank of gas. Okay, that's actually a pretty good plan. He's also kind of lucky that there was something available at that range. Um, I, I'm thinking of somebody in particular. There is nothing within one tank of gas of her that she could ever hope to get to. Um, to say that she's deep behind enemy lines is an understatement. So if you have to make deals or make friends with somebody, preferably out of state, that's actually a great plan. Um, that's actually the best plan in a way, but it's got to be somebody who has room to take you. I'm gonna let out a tiny little secret. One of my plans back in 2005 was to buy an old farm somewhere in Oklahoma, is where we were talking. Basically, set it up like a ring fort of of trailer pads. We could all pull our trailer in, hook up, and we'd be good for the next month or 6 months or so. Um, and that was actually our plan, the communal effort. That fell apart partially because one of the people involved passed away. That sucked. Um, but yeah, I mean that really is a great plan if you can work with somebody. I do know somebody else who did something kind of like that, only for very, very different purposes. And that completely fell apart because of tax related issues. One of them was paying the taxes and the other was living there. Short version. She got tired of paying the taxes and not being allowed to use it. She also really, really hated the fact that she couldn't use the driveway. Actually, that was about 30-ish miles from here. I knew her in high school. Uh, Streamlab is telling me there's three on, so who's my third? I swear to guys, I am not boomering. Whoop. All right, so this has been going on about 30 minutes now. Um, this is a subject that it bothers me a lot. If you have specific and unique medical needs, be ready for 1 month without anything. Basically, be ready for 1 month without anything at every level. There's a family member of mine who is absolutely insulin dependent. If she does not get insulin, she will die. That's it. Type 1 diabetic, and her honeymoon has been over for 2 years now, so she's not making any at all that they can detect. Um, we have to have a month's supply of insulin for her, and we might have to ration it. We might have to deal with her peeing herself 3 and 4 and 5 times a day because her body's trying to purge the blood sugar. It's just the way it is. Uh, Boss, you take care of that baby. Um, I'm just gonna assume you're one of my 3. So, yeah, we may have to r ration her insulin. What do you do then? We ration her insulin. It's gotta be that simple. Um, make it last a little over a month. I am gonna say something that it will always be unpopular. If any crisis lasts more than 6 months, you're not trying. Now, I hope I just lost a couple of subscribers over that statement because what crisis has lasted over 6 months now? They're not trying. They're actually not trying anymore. Anyway, there are some, like No Mandate, who are trying very hard to manipulate the situation for more money, more power, uh, m more control. My governor isn't exactly ingratiating himself to me. Maybe that's just me personally. Maybe it's just me reacting to it, badly. Maybe I'm just a bitchy little cunt, but it seems like my governor isn't really trying that hard. I have not heard anybody actually defend no mandate of all people. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Mayor de Blasio just got whooped by the Supreme Court over this subject. You don't need to correct me. I know I'm right. Um, he also made the mistake of targeting specific subgroups. Sorry about that. He made the mistake of targeting specific subgroups rather than just in general. Not smart there, Mayor. Okay, if you're going to manipulate the system, at least manipulate it smartly. I mean, whatever he was thinking about closing Christian and Jewish churches, chapels rather, but nobody else's, that's stupid. All right, that's targeted harassment. Nobody bought this story that it's about public safety back in March, April, May, I think, when the Michigan governor ordered the state troopers to put nails in parking lots. All right. That's when I started seeing that no, no, this isn't about public safety anymore. It's about control, and you're out. Honestly, I'm surprised she survived that without a recall effort. Um, and recall means recall. I'm talking about the other issue. I'll get to that eventually. I'm still trying to kill some time here, so obviously Foss has his hands tied, and Trolla is had to go. So anybody else that has a question, I'd love to hear them. I'm checking out the YouTube feed, and it's telling me that this is almost 2 minutes behind. So, matter of fact, it's more than 2 minutes behind. It's more like 5 minutes behind. Wow. I am very sorry for that lag, folks. Part of being where I am. Okay. When I was much, much younger, I had a friend of family who had a VW Bug. It was parked in a storage lot in Sacramento where it legally probably shouldn't have been because it had gas. Once a month, they'd take it out, they'd run it, they'd put it back in the storage unit. It was state property. Okay, that's why it couldn't have gas in it. Be that as it may or may not. Um, it always struck me that that would be the perfect bug out vehicle because A, nobody or very, very few knew it was there. B, getting to it, if you really, really had to, would be as simple as cutting the chain link fence. And C, you get in, you start the engine, you go. The only downside to that was he couldn't store a camper with it. And I'm telling you, this camper alone, you could load that up to bursting, take off for the lake house. Oh my God, you could live very, very nicely. Even if everybody else is in tents and it's the middle of winter, y'all could still be living very, very nicely. Just take some party tents, put those over your uh, two-man tents. Matter of fact, that's a little lesson from history. You all know I'm a historian, right? Um, Up until just after the American Civil War, or sometime during, at least the higher um, the higher ranking members, you'd have a little two-man tent or big two-man tent inside of what would be a six-man tent, inside of a 10 by 10, inside of a party tent, right? The only reason you can't do that now is people just don't even remember to do that. I should really set that up as a demonstration someday. When I was still in Colorado, I actually kind of had that prototyping built, but I never filmed it because it didn't occur to me that it was important at the time. Maybe I should have, and maybe I should get around to doing that someday. Um, Not ignoring, not ignoring, I swear. Okay. Oh, your everyday carry should always, your gun should always be concealed. The worst case scenario there is you have it and nobody knows, and then they find out and they're all shocked and stunned. Best case scenario, well, actually, the worst case scenario to having open carry is somebody uses you as part of their plan. Now, I know that this guy goes to Walmart every day at 17:45, let's say. So I'm just going to hang out, and when he walks in, I'm going to take his gun and use it. Well, that may be part of his plan. It should not be part of yours. But if you have it concealed, he's not going to know. Then he's looking at somebody else and thinking, I'll take her gun, or I'll take his gun. I'll take the security guard's gun. That does happen. There's a certain bank down in Sacramento where the bank robbers' whole plan was to take the guard's gun, hold him hostage, get the bag filled, and then run off into the sunset. And I know about this a little bit because he quit the next that day or the next day. They called me up and said we'd like you to go to blankety blank bank. And here's the real story. They got robbed in December. They got robbed last week, and the guard got taken hostage with his own gun. And I said, sure, I'll do it. Um, but I want body armor. And they said, done. And sure enough, that's how I got my first set. Um, Again, this was back in the 90s. And then I used it everywhere that I was working for the next 3 years, four. I still have it somewhere, but it's way past expired. Um, it's well, I know that was at least 10 years ago. Um, it was at least 5 years. Well, they're marked for 5 years. So, 2003. That was back in 2003. Just after I came off active duty from Operation Iraqi Freedom. No, I did not deploy. Do not read anything else into that. I was at a SAR station on the Sacramento River. Um, I know there's somebody who's talking about a little private island. That's not a bad plan if you can make it work. There's a little spot out in the Sacramento River called Frank's Tract. Back in the 1800s or whenever the hell it was, somebody by the name of Franks took this, not, it wasn't an island, but it was a raised area of the riverbed, locked off parts of it, drained it, and now it is islandish. Skip forward about 100 years. The Franks family is gone. As far as I can tell, they all died out. Oh, okay, no problem. It now reverted to state ownership, and the state decided they did not like this island being out here. They were going to let it flood. State of California, what do you expect? They literally can't do anything right. Ironically enough, somewhere out in that tract, there's still a stop sign and it's still enforced. I've seen the stop sign in the middle of a river. I was told there's a stop sign in the middle of a river. Uh, And then Tug had me out one day. Holy shit, there's the stop sign. Um, so all he did was basically the same thing in reverse, which, first of all, you can do that legally. You can do it on the down low. I know people who I know of people who have. There's a whole TV series from what is it? Swamp People, I think it is. The alligator hunting families. They've done it. I assume legally because they're on TV doing it. Um, I'm just saying it's not that hard, and it's usually really as simple as putting up enough material at one point to get the river to stop flowing through this little patch of area, sometimes backfilling on the other end. Now it's all nice and dry, and you have a nice little island that you can use. Um, I know there was a guy who was talking about doing something like that, only his whole plan was to block off the river, which closes apparently in the high part of summer. It's a dry river in the highest part of summer. Digging a hole, dropping a bunker down there, Atlas bunker, relining it so that it would reach up to the dry land in the high point of winter, and then putting a barn on top of it. I remember reading this and thinking, this guy's an idiot. And he probably was. Um, on the other hand, there's the guy who talked about buying an old Chinese submarine. sailing it up the Sacramento River, digging a trench out, sailing the submarine into the trench, and then filling the trench in. So stupider ideas have been floated. Okay. Um, my hope for guess is he said he might be here at 1000. So not ignoring guys. I'm just going to see if maybe he tried to reach out to me. Unfortunately, I have like 50 things piled up on top of me. If he can't make it, I might have to cut this one short for this week. Okay, got nothing. Here we go. Oops. And to be clear, yeah, I was the guy that talked about buying the old Chinese, maybe I said Russian, I don't remember now, submarine without the missiles. The info says shipping containers would be cheaper than a sub, and he'd be right if you can bury them. And some you can. A lot of them you can partially bury. Some of them you can't even partially bury. Um, that is actually an important thing to consider. For those of you who've ever seen one, this is basically a variation on the dry boat theory, which is where you have an old boat that you want to save for whatever reason, turn it into a dock, you fill in the dock, and now you have a permanently landlocked boat, which I believe HMS Victory now qualifies as. Um, and if any of you know better, especially if you've been there, don't be afraid to correct me. I kind of get two different stories about that, so I'm not sure what the reality is. Um, Shipping containers would be a lot cheaper if they're strong enough to handle that load. Also, Quonset huts were sometimes built for that standard. Just saying. Um, Atlas containers, not Atlas containers, Atlas bunkers were specifically built for that. The problem with Atlas bunker is you're making it pretty clear to everyone what's really going on here. You can't get one of those and your neighbors not find out. And have it delivered in the dead of night. You can say that it's a sewage system. You can do a million other things. Sooner or later, everybody's going to know, wait a second, that's not a sewage system. And now everybody knows you've got a bunker in your backyard. Um, an important part of any kind of preps like this is secrecy. Now, I've talked about Papa Carey's lake house. I've even, it's called Lake House because it's in Lake County, California. That's all anybody really knows about it. Just saying. Oh, that and it's on a farm, 40 an acre farm. And security is provided because he rents out the property to AgriCorps, right? Well, that means they have to protect their assets. Security is thereof provided. Um, the Oklahoma plan, one of the things we'd actually considered was a ring fort, which is an ancient style of village fortification, better known as a Mott and Bailey system. With jumpers inside the ring and then rent the rest of the dirt. The the Broken Hills plan also is something like that. Broken Hills, I actually own a tenth of a 10-acre plot down in Kern County, I think it is. Our plan was to build a underground office building. Up on the top, there was going to be one little shack painted a very special way with an elevator. It just leads straight into an elevator and down into what would have been a dance club. The shack is there, and it's just a crop now. Well, the shack was there. Um, that was like 5 years ago. It's probably fallen down. While we were waiting for the county clerks to approve the plan, which they summarily refused to, we were renting the dirt out to farmers. Matter of fact, if this plan had come to complete fruition, we could have continued to rent out the dirt to the farmers after construction was completed. For those of you that are lost or confused, yes, that's a Fallout 1 reference. Oh, again, the county clerks just said no. They did not, they were not comfortable with a basement dance club. And kind of understandably, especially with what's happened since then. Um, I really keep meaning to go down there and check on that place. Um, we were also, this was when I was still just part of the Fallout community and nothing else. Um, or yeah, well, Fallout and sort of fringe Palladium community. We were going to build all of the sites from Fallout and Fallout 2 to some degree, and then rent them out as party places. Obviously, that plan went nowhere. Closest we got was buying this 10-acre plot down in Kern County. It is what it is. Okay, I'm still kind of hoping that maybe he shows up. No messages on Discord from him. Oh, it would help if I looked in the right one. There we go. I'm going to reach out. Okay. And on a related note, shipping containers would not have worked for that plan. It was actually going to be a full-on office building construct and then furniture it to look like the bunker. Hmm. Complete with the gym. We had been pricing out treadmills and uh, exercise bicycles and punching guns. Speaking of which, I should probably track down those guys. You can do a whole lot if nobody actually knows what you're doing. I know there's a place down in San Francisco proper, down in the industrial district. Um, without getting into details, if you didn't know it was there, you would never know it was there. It could be possible that somebody thought sufficiently far ahead to uh, um, build their fallout bunker in a way and shape that not only does nobody know it's there, but they think that there's nothing there. Perhaps maybe it looks like an old parking garage that's been converted to a a factory. Let's just say factory. They're manufacturing something there. And the best part is they're still making money off of having basically shit posted in real life a bunker right there in the middle of the city. And they have absolutely secure access because only King Fool is going to go in there at that point. Oh, that's not going to do me any good. Any questions at all, if they're not ridiculously off topic, be happy to answer. um, Not on the list, but two conditional exemptions. Uh, Inebriation, you are or plan to be drunk, you're exempt. Um, and nature of work, and I always think back to utility line workers because they get zapped from time to time, even now. They don't want to carry a gun on them because there is a, admittedly, a very vague chance, but a chance that them getting zapped, their gun will, the ammunition in their gun will all go off at the same time. That's a bad thing. Okay. And they don't want to leave it in their truck because it might get stolen or their truck might get stolen. Case out of somewhere back east, I forgot where, a utility line worker's truck got stolen while he was working on the utility line. And then it was a high speed chase. Well, eventually it was a high speed chase, but this guy's trying to lower the bucket while it's still moving. And it's not supposed to be moving at all. Now, I think that was from the 70s or very, very early 80s. And my understanding is there's now a way to prevent the vehicle from being taken out of park while the bucket is up. But back then there wasn't. And that was a very, very dangerous situation. Bare minimum, it demonstrated that somebody could break into the truck. Not comfortable leaving your gun in your truck. Really not comfortable having it on you while you're working on that utility line. I totally get it. Leave it in your car or leave it in your locker at work. And with the grace of God, go. You didn't even do anything wrong. And I would love to meet the cop that writes that ticket first. There's some that are kind of subjective, and you might have to go into the courtroom and say, Your Honor, it's not safe for me to carry a gun at work because, oh, excuse me, it's a confined environment or whatever. I mean, a correctional officer on duty is exempt. They don't carry guns while they're on duty. There's a reason for that, and it's a damn good one. Again, good luck writing that ticket. And if you're the cop that wrote that ticket, you know, I hope you have a backup plan then. Might be others that I just can't even begin to think of off the top of my head. Construction worker, maybe, maybe not. And it is somewhat subjective. You know, you're the worker, you say, this wasn't safe and I can't do it. Um, and the judge is sitting up there saying, yeah, actually, you could. Okay, DM Foss says, I saw a video of a guy was tased and it hit a magazine in his pocket setting off a round. The cops opened fire when it went off. Yeah, I can see how that happened. Um, I'm kind of confused though how the taser set, because tasers are not that powerful. I'm sorry, they're not. It was powerful enough to set a round off. Did it hit? Did one of the prongs hit the gun itself? Maybe. I'm kind of confused. That's not enough power normally to set a bullet off. Oh, very unfortunate. It does happen. These are one of those freak occurrences that you can't plan for in life. Not ignoring. There we go. Still no response. I'm not ignoring you guys, I swear. One of the reasons I've been sending invites to people that I trust is because it's a lot easier to live stream when you're talking to somebody. It's easier to live stream as a team. Mm, okay, that has to wait. That was another private message off of. That was another private message on Discord that was not about this. Um, DM, if you could find that video again, I'm kind of extremely curious about how that happened. Okay. No more questions. That sucks. So much easier to respond to questions. Um, a mandatory carry case study that I saw just this week. Apparently, this is down somewhere in Central or South America. I'm not exactly sure. Two guys run up towards a camera, which I assume was at a restaurant because there's a couple sitting at a table there. They're running towards the camera with guns. The guy stands up and he shot one of them. I could tell he might have shot the other one, and thus ended what probably would have been a massacre. You wouldn't have heard about it in the United States because, well, it's South America. Who cares? Brazil or Argentina or whatever. Who cares? You know what it's like down there. Anytime you say you know what it's like or you know what they're like, you're exposing your racist tendencies. Now, there might be some truth to what you're saying, but no, you're making an assumption of a group based on their race or their ethnicity or whatever. You're wrong. Um, for those of you that know the SCNFP story, that guy was racist, and Fix put him in his place. She did the most crude, obnoxious, rude, slightly racist way she could, but she certainly put him in his place where he really did belong. Um, you know, there's no flight schools in Afghanistan. This is all CIA. Shut the fuck up. You're obnoxious. And then she made her statement and flicked her butt and went back inside. And you know, did that just happen? Um, everybody knows the juice are trying to take control of the world. They're not. Hell, and I'm going to say this: not every Iranian supports the Iranian government. I have videos of people, of Iranians, openly protesting and risking their lives doing so. And I don't have the end of that video either, so I don't know how it ended. To say our government's actions are wrong and screw you, Soleimani, in particular. One of them was, it's described as having been celebrating his death. Um, and no, not every Iranian is a rocket scientist or a genetic engineer or even trained in first aid. All right. But I know that every Iranian is not so stupid that they can't understand these concepts. Telling me they have no such facilities. And when you don't have respect for somebody because they, or for a people because you think they're less than you set yourself up for huge failure. The the French and British between World War One and Two assumed that the Germans would not be capable of rebuilding and rearming for another 10 years after the war actually started. That was an actual assessment. That the German economy was so badly hit by the combination of the Treaty of Versailles and the economic downturn in the 20s, they won't be able to rebuild until the 1940s at least, or 50s, or whatever the hell it was they said, late 40s. They didn't respect the Germans. How did that work out for them? Tell you all the truth, I didn't respect Afghans until 9/11, and that's when it occurred to me, you know what? I need to shut up about that. And I did that one to myself too. Um, Even now, Somalis, butt of every stupid joke, right? I don't tell that joke. I know better now. They may not be the most sophisticated and technologically advanced society on earth, but I will never disrespect them by saying that they're stupid and incapable. For those of you that read about my Iran theory, hey, I also say that Somalia could be the ones that did it. Less likely, could be possible. And I've said at least a few times the only country I take off the list is Mexico because that would really, really blow up badly in their face. As a suspect, Mexico is only off the list because the disincentive is huge. All right. Says I only have one viewer now. And actually, I think I qualify as my own viewer. See what that did. Um, okay, well, it's almost quarter after. I think he's not going to make it. So I'm going to start into Restoring the classic militia system. That sucks. Okay, so the concept is this. Once every month, on a more or less set schedule, you would have to report to a school, a fire station, a range, a something for militia training, 2 6-hour segments, and they say once every on a weekend. Well, if you work weekends, you can't show up on the weekend. If you have Wednesday and Thursday off, you might have to arrange it for the Wednesday and Thursday. If you can't show up on time on Wednesday and Thursday of your assigned week, you might have to reschedule it for the next week or the previous week, or you might just have to reschedule it to the next month. I don't, and I always say, uh, Battalion A, Company A is the first week of January, and they're doing first aid. I'm Company A, or Battalion A, Company A. I'm supposed to show up on the first week, but January, I'm going to be out of state all month, plus a couple weeks. The next regularly scheduled first aid is February, March, April, is for May. So I have to make it to that. Amazing part about this is you really only have to make it to one of each scheduled training per year, or else will come later. If you can't go to each one, you might have some social impacts, you might have some tax related impacts depending on your municipality or county. It's not like that's going to be the end of the world. But if you don't make it to one of each training session per year, you lose your franchise for that year. You cannot vote for that year. Okay, DM Foss said the video was, he was describing it as it was labeled, so understood. Um, the idea is well, there's 4 training groups: first aid CPR, uh, fire suppression and response basic, other as regionally directed, and firearms. And actually, those last two, in my mind, I keep going back and forth what they are. First aid CPR, every time you walk out of your first aid CPR training session, you should be able to renew your first aid CPR certification. You will know how to do CPR. You will know how to do basic first aid. And you can advance beyond that. We'll talk about that later. Oh, fire response or fire prevention, suppression, and response. All right, so just fire training. You know the things that would cause a fire or let a fire grow, so you know how to mitigate those. You know how to fight a basic fire. I'm talking about fire extinguisher level, garden hose level, and how to fight a wildland fire. And I'm talking about pickaxes and shovels territory, maybe Pulaskis, maybe chainsaws. Also, in the municipal side is maybe how to move hoses. You're not going into a burning building, and you're not going to be put in front of the raging forest fire, but you might be asked to put the backstops in, or to man the camp where the wildland firefighters are trying to recover from actually being out on the line, or something else. Now, for those of you that say, yeah, that can't be done, that's a highly technical skill. No, it's not that technical. All right. Prison inmates earn time off for fighting wildland fires. I think it's a day and a half for every day on the line. So, illiterate prison inmates are getting time off of their sentence by fighting wildland fires. That's it. That's the truth. You think you can't do that? I'm sorry, you're you're fooling yourself maybe, alright? Um, a basic fire response, how to evacuate a house or building in the event of a fire, how to put the fire down long enough to be able to evacuate, bare minimum, that sort of thing. Oh, excuse me. And you are not a qualified firefighter, alright? You're just an emergency responder. Once the real firefighters show up, you can walk away. Just walk on down the road and with the grace of God, go. Um, Firearms training. This one I'm a little more specific. You sit through the lecture of what state self-defense laws are. You do a range consisting of one complete carry load, one reload, and when you're shooting at the target, all of your rounds are accounted for. You don't have to make every shot a bullseye. You don't even have to make every shot center of mass. If it's on the paper, it's accounted for. Um, it's even possible that that one can be done in a 3-hour session, depending on how the size of your group. I'm just saying. Exemptions to and regional. Portland, Oregon, floods from time to time. San Francisco, earthquakes. Los Angeles, earthquakes, and wildfires. So that's already covered, but certainly earthquakes. Um, where I live, there have been major heat emergencies and high wind events that have caused significant damage. These are the kinds of things you would be training to respond to and then recover from. Your neighbors are buried in their houses, or the city's flooding. How to build a just a basic dike to hold the Columbia River back, that sort of thing. And it would have to be determined by a local authority. The center of that authority will always be the sheriff, and I'll come back to that much later. Now, um, chain of command. You have your squad, or you have your company. Maybe your company commander is elected. Fine, I'm okay with that. Your battalion commander maybe is elected from company commanders. That's great. They would report to somebody in the sheriff's office who only reports to the sheriff. Or the battalion commander would just report straight to the sheriff himself if it's a small enough county. If you're not even big enough for a full battalion, well, then your battalion commander is also your company commander. There's not a lot of counties that small, but it could happen. Um, that sheriff, first of all, is an elected official. That legitimizes his authority going one direction. Going the other direction is sheriffs are designated as county emergency services coordinators or emergency response coordinators under a 90s era law. Even the president of the United States, when responding to an emergency in Clackamas County, Oregon, has to start with that sheriff. Now, if he's really screwing up that bad that the president or the governor decides to take over, well, okay, good luck, Mister. During the Oroville Dam disaster, there was like some talk about relieving the sheriff Honeck, I think it was, of his duties because he was overreacting. If the governor had decided to go that route, well, good luck there, Moonbeam. You're on the hook for everything that happens after that. Just something to consider. Um, That's a completely legitimate chain of command, up, up and down. And that means you report to a legitimately elected official. Now you report through a properly um, or duly appointed official, maybe, probably, but you do report eventually to an elected official. Um, the sheriff could then call out the militia, not the National Guard. This is below the needs of a National Guard. We don't need F-18s and MRAPs running around. We need 100,000 people to shore up a dike or to fight a fire. I I first thought about this when McMurrow, Canada, was burned to the ground. And I'm seeing everybody evacuating and thinking that's a huge manpower pool that could have been sent to fight that fire if they knew how. They didn't know how. They also barely knew how to evacuate. And that's a real problem. Every time there's an evacuation, nobody knows what to do. So it becomes an ugly, nasty free for all. Um, Much more recently, I was in California when the campfire broke out. That's the fire that burned Paradise, California to the ground, killed like 90 people, 100 people, something like that. One that they blamed it on PG&E faster than you could say PG&E. The fire wasn't even out and PG&E was already being blamed. Now, talk about stringing somebody up to hang. Well, let's not actually investigate the fire. Let's just blame PG&E. The worst part is they could have been partially responsible, but at this point, I don't believe them because everybody was so quick to blame them. Okay, and Rant, back on topic. Um, Part of what went wrong with Paradise is everybody's trying to evacuate through one route that was actually closed. The fire was all around that one route. The other route was already closed because that was where the fire had started. What are you going to do? You got to drive through this fire. A lot of people did not make it down that road. Led to some really fucking weird ass conspiracy theories about lasers and backfires and how the state did this is Jade Helm shit. Whatever that idiot was going on about. I'm not even gonna lie. I tagged that video as spreading. I don't even remember. I reported the video to YouTube saying these people died and this guy's lying about it. And YouTube says, "Oh yeah, but it's okay because it's the right kind of lie." For me to go so far as to report something, you really have to jump off the short end of, or the long end of a short drop. The short end of a long drop. I don't can remember what the expression is, but you really got to fuck up bad. And this guy's talking about DEWs. Okay, and Rant. Um, Knowing what to do is very critical. Now people will start to know what to do. Here's a story. I was at a gun exercise around 2009, 2008, somewhere around there. And my M240 kept jamming. And I was doing everything right at first, count to three and then try again. Reload, count to three. Didn't get too far before I finally got pissed off and, misfire, misfire, misfire. And I'm actually working the action as I'm saying the words, let it go, and tried firing again. And when that happened 3 times in a row, I was really mad. I had the bolt action machine gun. And the weird part is, first of all, I knew what to do. So I didn't freak out and panic or, sauce, something's wrong with the gun. No, I kept on going. I knew what to do now. The second part is knowing how to respond to the situation helped me stay calm and focused. Now I know how to respond to fires. When I first went in the Coast Guard, I had one fire training in my life. And it didn't even involve a real fire. It was a fire department deliberately set this fire so that we could demonstrate we knew what a fire extinguisher was. That's it. They even used gasoline so that we couldn't really put the fire out. All they had to do was just kind of shake the tub a little bit and off it goes. Um, Now you'll have the training, you'll understand what to do. All right, so let's assume that for whatever reason you really can't respond. First of all, if just being exempt from mandatory carry does not mean you're exempt from militia duty. If you are psychologically or mentally unfit, you're exempt with the grace of God, go, but you're never voting again in your life. Now, think about this. If you're retarded or completely mentally unstable, should you be voting anyways? I'm just saying. Um, my Papa Carey, about a year ago, I guess, 6 months ago, brought up an interesting case study. Somebody that he had known in the Navy who walked around with a billy club in his back pocket. He walked around with a billy club in his back pocket because, as he put it, I might need it. Yeah, no, you might want it when you started a fight. Let's call him Bob. Bob would start fights, and it's really simple. It always starts simply. You would say the sky is blue, and he'd say, "Yeah, I think it's overcast." Dude, it's blue. What are you, stupid? It's overcast. I can see a cloud right now. And that's how his brain worked. And from there, it would escalate into eventually a physical fight. If your mind works that way, and there are people out there like that, they're not going to want to give up their franchise, their right to vote, just because their brain doesn't work. Okay, first step is you had an argument with the instructor. Instructor threw you out of his class. Well, he has the right to do that. You have the right to appeal and be sent to a different instructor, and let's see if that's the problem. Right? I've seen that happen in the military as well. Um, and I'm straight up going to say, well, there was a recruit who was accused of being gay. True or not, this is under the don't ask, don't tell era. True or not, his company commander kept calling him out and kept calling him out and kept harping on him in particular. Eventually, the lieutenant, I think it was, agreed that, we got to get some separation. This sucks for you, recruit. You're going to be here an extra week, but you're getting reverted. Get you away from him and see what's really going on here. Now, I cannot, I think I cannot legally tell you whether the story was true or not, but I had a lot more respect for that recruit than I did his company commander because he toughed out the extra weeks to be there. Um, it sucked for him. I'm sorry. I also know what he was going to do about it, and he was going to do everything the right way. And I want to emphasize that. Um, The next company commander actually did ask him at one point, "Are you gay?" And his answer was, "Sir, I'm not legally allowed to answer that," or something to that effect. So he refused to answer the question. Don't ask, don't tell. Second company commander was not supposed to ask that question, and he was not allowed to answer it. Um, so the first thing to do is, okay, Bob, you and mandatory are not getting along. We're going to take you out of mandatory's class and put you in Papa's class. And let's see how you do there. Now, if Bob makes up with, does well with Papa, maybe there's just a problem with me and Bob. And if I'm constantly having people rotated out of my class because I'm throwing them out of my class, maybe the problem is me. Maybe I'm the one that has some sort of issue. All right. Maybe I'm boring my class to tears. For the record, I would never give those classes because I know I can bore myself. What the hell am I going to do to that poor class? Um, okay. All right, guys. It appears that my guest is really not coming because he hasn't even responded to the message. Uh, get into some of the gritty details. Only one uniform, blue safety vest or blue vest in general with your county or city emblem on it, your roster number, and your roster number they could actually track down where to find you. I have a system that I've proposed, and I don't know if that'll be taken at the end of the day. Um, and someone, a police officer or firefighter, has to be able to account for where you were and why you were there. Oh, excuse me. Um, Call out system, using the exact same equipment we currently use for the Amber Alert system. It's the equipment's already there and in place. It's ready to use. How hard could that be? Um, Liability goes to the sheriff first, and I know courts give a lot of flexibility to peace officers and firefighters in the performance of their duties if they're not doing something that's completely insane. Um, I think those are the major points. You might have a better vest than somebody else, and you might have to use a handed out vest, like you're at Safeway shopping. Peace officer says, "I just activated you for the militia system. Come with me now. You got to go." Um, I'm going to get into that because that's right. If I did that to somebody else under the exact same circumstances, being not a peace officer, that'd be kidnapping. Peace officer can do that. Firefighter can do that. Paramedic can do that if you're unconscious. And it's not kidnapping. It's actually legally calling somebody to hue and cry. All right. Um, Actually, no. Posse comitosis when it's peace officers and firefighters. Hue and cry when it's a civilian calling for help. But making them come is kidnapping if I do it. You ever use the militia authority as a peace officer or firefighter with ulterior motives, you don't get the defense anymore because it's still kidnapping at that point. I know that's going to require some training for some peace officers, and I'm sorry, and that sucks. It is what it is. Um, Peace officer grabs you right off the street and says, I'm activating the militia. Come with me now. Hey, I don't have my vest. It's at home where it's supposed to be. Police officer gives you the vest, and the cheap ones out of the back of their car. That cheap one out of the back of their car is marked with the patrol unit number, not the officer's number, patrol unit number. They are responsible for you, and they don't come off duty until they can account for your whereabouts. They have to make sure that because you're doing what they are, or firefighter, because you're doing what they told you to do, they are responsible for you from now till the evolution ends, or they release you. Which either comes first. Okay, if you have comments or thoughts about that, I'm really interested to hear them. Because of circumstances, Papa Carey's hit, um, and no sign from my guest that he's going to show up, I'm going to go ahead and end this one early. Keep calm, mandatory carry on, and God bless you. Good luck.